Hello, sports history fans. I'm Ross from the podcast Pigskin Tales. You're about to jump into another thrilling sports history moment, but first, let's dive into today's sponsor, just in time for the holiday season. Introducing Art of Words, the brainchild of word artist Dan Duffy from Philadelphia. Dan meticulously crafts stunning images by handwriting relevant words from some of the greatest sports moments in time. These unique budget-friendly illustrations are the perfect gift, sparking cherished memories and capturing hearts. Choose from city skylines, sports, history, and musicians to find a piece for everyone. And here's the exciting part. For that sports fanatic in your life, gift them a piece of their favorite team or player's history. Art of Words tells a compelling story. Explore collegiate stadiums, each meticulously crafted with every football victory etched into words. Or venture into baseball stadiums, handwritten with every player from the team's illustrious history. My favorite on the site is Bryce Harper 2021 MVP year. Because I'm a big stats guy, I think that's one of the coolest things ever. Check it out. Don't wait. Order a print today for yourself and your loved one this holiday season. Transform your wall into a gallery of captivating art and surprise your family and friends with a print of their own. Use code SHN15 at artofwords.com for a 15% discount on your order in November and December. Visit Art of Words, where words magically transform into stunning art, evoking cherished memories and touching the hearts of those who you care about. Again, use the code SHN15 for 15% off at artofwords.com.
Let's think back to the 1940s. World War II is raging and the United States is on high alert. The fear of German attacks is real and even affecting the world of sports. In this episode, we'll take you back in time to a pivotal moment in sports history as FootballArchaeology.com's Timothy P. Brown visits us to tell us about wartime and football crowds. Coming up in just a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history on a day-to-day basis. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time. So as we come out of the tunnel of the Sports History Network, let's take the field and go no huddle through the portal of positive gridiron history with PigskinDispatch.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of PigskinDispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pigpen, your portal to positive football history, and welcome to another evening where we get to talk to Timothy P. Brown of FootballArchaeology.com about one of his famous tidbits that comes out daily. Tim, welcome back to the Pigpen.
Darren, thanks for having me this evening. I feel honored now that I am in the presence of a published author.
Well, thank you.
Hey, congratulations. I mean, I know the amount of work you put into it, and just encourage everybody pick up. I'll let you do the plug yourself, but great stuff on an old time team.
Well, thank you. You were a big part of that, and I appreciate it. And folks, the name of the book is The World's Greatest Pro Gridiron Team. We've talked about it before in the podcast. We won't beleaguer you too much on that. But Tim was gracious enough to do some research on some of the bonus content we have in there. We did something a little bit different. So not only in the ebook, you have links to go into some things that are beyond the book, but also in the hard copy books, we have QR codes. You can use your smart device and go in there. And I think we have 3 or 4 from Tim that goes in there and talks about some good old time football, just to set the mood for 1903 football, because most of us sit there and read it and say, what does this mean? Well, we have the man that knows that era very well. By his research. So we appreciate your help there, and a lot of help and advice along the way too. And we appreciate you, Tim.
No problem. Good time.
Now, we're going to go back into one of your tidbits tonight with, back in the earlier days, well, I guess this one's from this year that we're going to be doing, but back a few months ago, and talk about something, we're not that familiar with wartime and sports and being in stadiums. Okay, we know a little bit about COVID. We know terrorist attacks and going through security and everything. We're familiar with that. But we're going back to an era where the country was at war and could be in danger. People didn't know at the time if they were in danger or not. And I think it's really an interesting topic that you wrote back in May. And you titled it "An Aerial Attack at Yankee Stadium." And we'd love to hear all about it.
So this is, I mean, to me, just like you said, it's an interesting thing to try to put yourself back in the time and the uncertainty they faced, right? I mean, there's things we know now that either the Japanese or the Germans had this capability or that, but they weren't sure. They weren't sure how things were going. So just kind of set the stage a little bit. It's so December 7th, 1941, Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. And, so one of the consequences of that was that the folks on the West Coast, the civil defense people, were concerned about trying to gather 80,000 people into the Rose Bowl on, a glorious January 1st. So they said, no, you can't hold the game here in California. And so the Rose Bowl got transferred to Durham, North Carolina, because Duke was one of the teams playing. And likewise, the Shrine East-West game, which is an all-star game based in San Francisco, that was transferred to New Orleans that year. So, okay, we get past football season, and then, on the East Coast, while the Germans didn't have aircraft carriers like the Japanese did, they had a lot of submarines. And so there was, back in the time, there were certain like planes that could launch from submarines, just the old biplane kind of thing. But anyways, they the Germans were seeing a lot of shipping. 630 some ships got sunk along the East Coast, during 42 and that period. So they did things like they FDR green lighted sports, but like auto racing, motorcycle racing was banned to save tires and gasoline. And in places like Yankee Stadium, one of the impacts was they just never knew what would happen if somebody attacked the place, right? If somehow the Germans had some capability where they would attack Yankee Stadium during a baseball game. And so they set up this process where they had signs all over the stadium that was basically, evacuation routes. I mean, if you've been in cities like, LA has them, and, other places where there's these tsunami signs, if you're near the beach, the Pacific Northwest, same things. It's like, okay, here's these signs. Here's what happens if there's a tsunami, you get out of there.
Yeah, run like hell.
Yeah. But in Yankee Stadium, it was like if you were in the upper deck, or if you were in the box seats or the grandstands or bleachers, whatever, it had different escape routes for you. And so that's all baseball stuff. And I also should have said that because of blackout conditions, like night games, they didn't have any night games, at least in 1942. And so, then, Yankee Stadium at the time was still a popular place for football games, both college and pro. And so, I think I've sold it since, but, I had a copy of a 1942 Army versus Princeton football program, and, played at Yankee Stadium. And, with inside of the, one of the ads or pieces of information, it had in there was just, it told you, okay, like I said, if you're in this section, here's your escape route, proceed this way, run out to such and such avenue or whatever, you can get the hell out of the Bronx. So anyways, it's just one of those things, you just can't imagine it. It's just not, I mean, now we do go through security, and so maybe it is more imaginable now, but it's just one of those things you just don't think about that happening. And so just one other little point about that game and that season was that, Princeton and Army played on, one Saturday, and then the next one was the Army-Navy game. And so again, due to wartime conditions, they moved it from Philadelphia to Navy Stadium in Annapolis because they wanted to have a smaller crowd, which was going to be the case there. And they would only sell tickets to people who lived within 10 miles of the stadium because they wanted to reduce people traveling to the game, and eating up gas or whatever, So it's just one of those interesting things that occurred. And I think by 43, the concerns about attacks there were still concerns about espionage, concerns about attacks from a military standpoint had dissipated. But, by then, a lot of guys were getting drafted, being, and enlisted. So, NFL had teams merge, the Steelers and were they the Pirates then or the
Steelers with the Eagles or the Steagles.
The Steagles, yeah.
And then they had the pick cards next year, or maybe it was vice versa.
Yeah. So, like in the pro game, roster limitations, they merged a team or two, and then in colleges, a number of colleges dropped football, during the war. So just due to roster limitations and other things. So yeah, just one of those things, a little bit hard to imagine now, but that's what happened back then.
Yeah. One of the interesting things, I learned a lot from that post, but one of the things that sort of resonated with me that I sort of outside of sports is I didn't realize that the Germans didn't have aircraft carriers. So, I guess maybe that's because I always wondered, I'm like, why did they move the Rose Bowl from the West Coast to the East Coast? You're still on a coastal. Why not have it in Oklahoma or somewhere, or the Cotton Bowl or something where it's safe, where there's no water around, where you can, worried about aerial attack. But I didn't realize that the Germans didn't have aircraft carriers. So thank you for teaching me that. So probably some of the same things why Yankee Stadium and Annapolis didn't seem so scary too, for the submarines couldn't attack them too much from there. You're a little bit too far away from.
Yeah.
But so
again, just different time, and you just it's just interesting to try to put yourself back in those periods, and kind of things happen that you just think about, right?
Definitely some fun football facts, and you have some of these each and every day. Like we said, you call them your tidbits, and maybe you could share with the audience, for those who aren't familiar with it, how they too can participate in reading your tidbits each and every day.
Yeah, so the best thing is just go to footballarchaeology.com and subscribe. You'll get an email every day at 7:00 Eastern with today's little story, and read them at your leisure. Delete them if that's really what you want to do, but otherwise, just I know people let them pile up over the weekend or read them over the weekend, whatever. But that's the best way to subscribe.
Okay. Well, Tim, we really appreciate you coming on here and sharing with us each week that, some of these great football facts. We appreciate you sharing your football knowledge in the book, and, some of the other things that you've done to help us all understand that, and footballarchaeology.com. And we will talk to you again next Tuesday.
Very good. And congratulations again. Thanks.
Peeking up at the clock, the time's running down. We're going to go into victory formation, take a knee, and let this baby run out. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back tomorrow for the next podcast. We invite you to check out our website, pigskinddispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskinddispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. A special thanks to the talents of Mike and Jean Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Have you ever noticed that the lower jaw is not protected in sports? Did you know that 10,800 concussions will happen today? This has been an upward trend for the past 50 years. I'm Dr. Michael Hutchison, a practicing neuromuscular dentist. When my son wanted to participate in football and rugby, I was afraid he was going to get a concussion. That fear led me to finding the missing link to reducing concussions. The fact is, the only part of the skull that is not protected in sports is the lower jaw. If you want to drastically reduce concussions, there are 3 basic jaw positions that affect concussions, and 2 of them are not good. The correct one is called physiologic jaw position. It will dissipate the force away from the brain. Knowing that, I designed an appliance that put my son's jaw in the right place. And as a result, he was concussion-free from 5th grade all the way to senior year. This jaw position takes those 10,800 concussions today down to 28. It's the key to concussion protection. As a parent, this is what you need to know. It's extremely important that the device you are using is on the lower jaw. Thickness of the device is important. Most importantly, it must position and hold you in your own unique personal physiologic jaw position. So if your child goes out on the field with the correct jaw position, your son or daughter will not one of those 10,800 concussions today. Get yours today at powerplusmouthguard.com. Use the promo code POWERUP2023 for 10% off.